Hello YouTube, and welcome again to my channel. In this video I thought I would talk a little bit about what it was like growing up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Lots of other people have put their experiences out there, and there are some good, some bad, some crazy, some indifferent, what have you, the full spectrum. And I suppose like any other type of upbringing, there are good aspects to it, and there are bad aspects to it. There are people who are better at it, there are people who are worse at it, and what have you. So I'm not looking to do anything more than just to tell my experiences, and they're probably different from other people's. Now, all things told, I'm not going to say it was horrible being raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. A lot of people out there complain about things such as not having done the holidays, and I can understand that. I don't begrudge them that. Myself, that never bothered me. I guess I'm just weird that way. Part of that probably has to do, though, with my strong belief at the time that Jehovah's Witnesses taught us the truth. So I did not mind forgoing some of those things, because I fully believed that later on we would have blessings that far exceeded the holidays we were giving up. And maybe part of it too was just due to my own personality. Our family was they were interesting, they were awkward, kind of antisocial at times. So I never really minded missing that aspect. And on top of that, I felt I had enough other things to make up for it where it didn't bother me. But as I said in my previous video, I was raised with a constant expectation that the world was going to end at any minute. And that vastly affected the choices that I made growing up, and it drastically affected my outlook on life. I can remember being in school hoping that the end would come before some test that I had to take. Of course, that never happened. And I even remember thinking that school wasn't that important because the world wasn't going to survive that long. But I still did well in school because, thankfully, I was gifted with some intelligence. It affected my whole outlook on life, though. A lot of people, they go through certain stages of life. You grow up, you get to know people, you have fun for a while, you find yourself, and then you go and start a family. I never was very focused on starting a family. I always figured I would do that in the new system. I'm getting up there though. I don't know if it might be a little bit late, but I still have time to start a family. Whether I'm going to or not, who knows? We'll see what happens. But that never was a priority for me because I just figured that I was never going to die. I would live through Armageddon, and it'd be a lot easier to date someone and marry them when they were perfect and I was perfect, because I knew I had my personality quirks just like everybody else had theirs. So that was one thing that was interesting. But growing up, as I said before, I never regularly associated with worldly people. Outside of school, I never hung around with them. I never did things with them. My friends were always Jehovah's Witnesses. And within the context of that, they had to be good Jehovah's Witnesses. Because we were taught that even in the organization, even people who were Jehovah's Witnesses could be bad association. Maybe, for example, they didn't have very many spiritual goals. Maybe they missed a lot of meetings. Maybe they didn't get a lot of field service time. There were always things to judge people on when you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And to be considered a good Jehovah's Witness, you had to really toe the line. You had to be present at most, if not all, of the meetings, and you had to go in service on the weekends. And it was expected that you would get the national average. What that was they would tally up everyone in the whole entire nation, their service time, and figure out how many hours they were getting per month on the average. So to be a good Jehovah's Witness, you really wanted to be getting at least the national average of hours or close to it. And placements helped, and return visits helped, and Bible studies helped. So the more of any of those things you did, the better Jehovah's Witness you were considered to be. In fact, people that had really productive ministries were looked up to as good examples. Myself, I usually had return visits and placements. Occasionally I would have a study, but there's nobody that I ever studied with that was not a Jehovah's Witness that became a Jehovah's Witness, or nobody that didn't have family already that was Jehovah's Witnesses that became Jehovah's Witnesses. But nonetheless, even within the context of Jehovah's Witnesses, I always restricted my association to those who were spiritually strong. And I even, to some extent, looked down on those who were not spiritually strong, because this is what I was taught to do. So one interesting thing with Jehovah's Witnesses is, in retrospect, you're being judged on everything all the time. For example, let's say that you're in the habit of showing up late to the meetings. And what does late mean? Well, late means even getting there just as the meeting is beginning, as the song is starting. But if you're in the habit of doing that, that's looked down upon. If you skip a weekend or two in field service per month, that's looked down upon. If you don't answer at meetings during their question and answer sessions, that's looked down upon. If you don't participate in their theocratic ministry school and give good talks, that's looked down upon. If you don't toe the line completely and talk about spiritual things, that's looked down upon. If you watch movies that are not approved, that's looked down upon. If you listen to music that's not approved, that's looked down upon. If you entertain yourself in a way that's not approved, that's looked down upon. And the list goes on and on. There are any number of things that can be looked down upon as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And even people that perhaps had mental problems and maybe missed meetings for those reasons, well, it was never understood. They were never given credit for the fact that they had legitimate reasons not to be there. And Jehovah's Witnesses do not in any way, shape, or form really even grasp the way mental problems work, which is kind of ironic because percentage-wise, a higher percentage of Jehovah's Witnesses deal with mental and emotional issues than the population at large, which directly undermines their claim to being the happiest people on earth. But that's a whole other discussion that we're not going to bother getting into here. But my main point of what I was saying there was to demonstrate that as Jehovah's Witnesses, you are judged on every single thing you do by every single other member of the congregation, and you are taught to be that judgmental as well. So the way that works is the better of a Jehovah's Witness you are, the more judgmental you will tend to become. There are exceptions to that rule. There are those who are really good Jehovah's Witnesses, as defined by Jehovah's Witnesses, that are non-judgmental. They are in the minority. And typically the less judgmental Jehovah's Witnesses are typically not doing as much of the program as they should be, and that's why they're not so judgmental. But everything is basically a numbers game with Jehovah's Witnesses. The more of their service that you perform, the better person you are, the more respect you will get, the more leeway you can get. The more you are involved in their programs, literally you can get away with doing more things and people will turn a blind eye up to some extent. And that fabric is woven throughout, as near as I can tell, the entire organization. So it's very judgmental, but the higher up you get, it almost turns into a boys' club. So anyways, I grew up in that situation and I consider that to be totally normal. So that being the case, it was not unnormal or unusual in my viewpoint for me to look at worldly people as people that were going to be destroyed at Armageddon, or the people that I shouldn't hang around with because they would sway me from serving Jehovah. In fact, Jehovah's Witnesses are absolutely paranoid of associating with anybody who is not a Jehovah's Witness. They're practically taught that the only interest of those other individuals is to pull you out of Jehovah's organization. And whether or not those people are good people, if they're living a good life, if they're family people, if they're productive members of society, it doesn't matter. In fact, those are the people Jehovah's Witnesses fear the most, because they look good, but they don't serve Jehovah. So they might convince you not to serve Jehovah. So even people who are busy helping the poor, doing what have you, giving of their time and money, they're looked down upon if they're not servants of Jehovah. They're given the grudging respect that they're doing what they consider to be their best, but by Jehovah's Witnesses, their actions are considered to be futile, because the system is going to end at any moment. So that's kind of a nutshell of what it's like to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And you don't really realize that until you step away from it and look back in and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe I was that judgmental. And it takes a long time to work a lot of that out of your personality. But for myself, I earlier had said that I didn't focus on trying to get a family, but I actually did focus on trying to date and to find someone to marry for a considerable amount of time. And perhaps this is unusual in the term of being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but I actually dated a number of different girls. And oftentimes my primary criteria was not how well we got along together, but it was always how good of a servant of Jehovah will this person make when she's my wife. Because when in Jehovah's Witnesses, first of all, you don't date someone unless you are considering marriage to them. That is the only valid grounds for dating. And second of all, you're basically taught that the most important criteria is that you have spiritual goals in harmony. And beyond that, the most important thing is that you are compatible. So there's a massively skewed viewpoint of dating for Jehovah's Witnesses. And being as that I was good and I told the lines, well, that's the way I did it. And my particular congregation, one of their traits is that they were literally psychotic about people who were dating. As soon as somebody started to date, it became the gossip mill started, the rumor mill started, people talked about it. The elders got involved, they advised caution, and it just was a highly stressful thing. You felt like everybody was watching you, and you felt like your whole life was a matter of public opinion for people to talk about, and you had to be concerned about setting a good example and not doing the wrong thing and not getting in trouble. And that's what dating was like. In fact, to put this in perspective, there was one time when I was dating, and during this time I was actually a coordinator. Actually, I'll tell two stories about this. Twice I dated when I was coordinating a body of elders. One of these times, the person I dated, she happened to be the only person in her congregation really of eligible dating age. She was in her early to mid-20s at the point, and she was a fairly spiritually strong individual. But that small little congregation, once we started dating, had a local needs talk on how to select a mate. And she was the only person in that congregation dating at the time. And she was dating somebody who was an elder that was coordinating a body of elders. So that explains the level of paranoia that goes with Jehovah's Witness dating. And a second time, I dated a girl from far away, and she had a father who was an elder. And again, at this time, I was coordinating a body of elders. And this girl, or not this girl, but her father wanted to talk to my other elders, and he wanted to talk to my circuit overseer. So I provided that contact information. That brother called those elders, and he called the circuit overseer, and then he found a way to find more people that were elders that would know me, and he called them and asked them about me. And he had her ask me a whole laundry list of questions about who I was and what I had done. And this was while I was coordinating a body of elders as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The pressure was insane. It was absolutely crazy. That particular time it didn't work out because I think that girl had some pretty deep-seated emotional problems, and her father probably did too. But that's just the insanity of what it's like to grow up and to date and to just try and live your life when you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But through all that, I still was doing my best to toe the line, to be a good example, to encourage others to do their best to serve Jehovah. I always did my best to work with people as I could, to be friendly and not to be a jerk. But there that is. So growing up was really strange. A lot of things I look back on were really strange. And well, hey, it's part of life. So that's my story for this time. Next time, I think I'll talk a little bit about what it was like serving as an elder. So thanks for listening.